ladies. I am so excited to be here tonight. Before we get started, I wanted to thank all of you, and especially your troop leader, Diane, for giving me the opportunity to speak to you for a little bit. My name is Melanie Lovell, and I am here with Jane Bandini, who is chair of the Lynnfield Tree Committee. You guys are probably already familiar with the Tree Committee, as I know some of you participated in our trio cache contest that we held this fall. We had a lot of fun putting that game together, and we hope that you guys enjoyed playing it. Every time a group found one of the 6 geocaches that we had hidden around town, that group received 1 entry into our prize contest. The grand prize that we gave away last week was a beautiful native magnolia tree. We also, however, awarded prizes to anyone who participated, including Girl Scout Troop 82559. When we gave away our prizes last week, we assigned them randomly to all of the Trio Cache participants, and Troop 82559 won a mug with the Lynnfield Tree Committee logo on it. That seemed like an odd prize for a group of young people, so I reached out to Diane to discuss your options. And instead of accepting the mug, Diane wisely chose to accept a donation to the Arbor Day Foundation on behalf of your Girl Scout troop. That donation is going to be used to plant 40 trees in the Wallowa-Whitman National Forest. Now, if you're not familiar with that forest, it spans over 3,700 square miles in Northeast Oregon and Western Idaho. And in 2016, a devastating fire raged through 43,000 acres of it, destroying a tree cover that was already suffering from an ongoing epidemic of a mountain pine beetle. And so while some areas of that forest are regenerating naturally, other areas are still in desperate need of reforestation. So the Arbor Day Foundation has been stepping in there to assist. And thanks to your Girl Scout troop and your participation in the geocaching event, 40 trees will now be planted in your name to assist in their efforts to reforest that area. So, woohoo! Thank you for playing. Before we get started on your project, I wanted to take a moment to tell you a little bit about the Lynnfield Tree Committee. We are a subcommittee of the Lynnfield Conservation Commission, and we are town residents who are interested in volunteering to provide stewardship, education, and advocacy to promote and foster an appreciation for our town's natural tree resources. Our goals include protecting and restoring Lynnfield's natural tree resources, which provide shade and ornamentation to our streets. They create habitat for wildlife, they enhance property values, and they provide natural privacy. Right now, we have 8 active members, but we're always looking for more participation. Now that you know a little more about us, let's get to the part where we explain how our 2 groups are going to work together. We've been talking to Diane about ways to help you earn your trees badge, and we came up with a 4-step project that will involve groups of 2 to 3 girls working together to figure out the right space for a new tree and the right tree to fit into that space. Once planting season arrives again, Jane will work with you to plant the tree and make sure it stays healthy throughout the rest of the 2021 growing season. Once you've determined your small groups, each group will go out into the town and try to find a location that needs a new tree. The first thing you'll want to know is whether the land is public property or private property. Maybe you know a homeowner in Lynnfield who would love a tree planted on their property. If so, that's great. Or maybe you think that there's an area on town property that needs a new tree. If so, let us know. We can talk to the town's tree warden, who also happens to be our DPW director, to get permission to plant there. You'll want to make sure the location is suitable for planting a tree. Size, sun, and water access are the 3 most important factors here. The size of the space might dictate the type of tree you decide to plant. Some trees can grow over 100 feet, and others will want to spread out nice and wide if the space allows. Some trees need more sun than others. Is this a space that gets at least 6 hours of direct sunlight a day? If not, you'll have to consider a tree that will do well in partial shade versus one that needs a lot of light. Water access is a very important factor too. Once your tree is planted, you'll be tending to it weekly to make sure it has the moisture that it needs. Access to a water source, either public or private, is key, especially because we will likely be filling a water bag on site to attach to the tree when we plant it. You'll also want to note air quality. Is this tree going to be planted next to a busy road or in a grassy field? And what will the soil quality be like? Soil can be wet or dry, it can be loose or compact, it can be acidic or alkaline. Use a trowel or a spoon and dig into the soil a little bit to find out more about it. You might even want to take a soil sample so that you can test it later. Is this a windy site? Will you need a tree with a strong trunk to withstand the wind? Or is there a windbreak provided by nearby mature trees? These are all things to consider when choosing your site, as they will dictate the type of tree that you end up planting in that area. Once you've chosen your site, you will take a photo of the location and email it to us along with the address of the location. A member of the tree committee will then determine if this is a good site for a tree. Once you've chosen your location, it's time to pick a tree species. The first thing you should know is that we always prefer to plant native trees. Native trees and native plants are those that occur naturally in a region in which they evolved. They are the basis upon which life depends, including insects, birds, and people. Without them and the insects that co-evolved with them, local birds can't survive. And because native plants are adapted to local environmental conditions, they're actually easier to grow. They require far less time, money, and perhaps the most valuable natural resource, water. Now think back to the location that you chose. Can you plant a tall tree there? How about a wide tree? You'll want to narrow your search for trees based on the size of the area that you chose. Remember that sun and soil are important here. If your location doesn't get at least 6 hours of direct sun per day, you'll need to choose a tree that can accommodate partial shade. Do you have a preference for foliage? Do you want something that stays evergreen or loses its leaves? How about bark? Do you have a preference for color, texture, etc.? Speaking of foliage, remember that deer in Massachusetts can be relentless when it comes to eating leaves. Is your species of tree deer resistant? If not, will you protect it with wire mesh or other measures to keep the deer from destroying it? And speaking of animals, you may want to consider whether your tree will provide food and/or habitat to wild animals. For example, many insects love to eat oak leaves. The leaves, twigs, and young shoots of oak trees provide food for deer and animals, like rabbits. This may become an important food resource for some wildlife during times of food shortages. And of course, acorns are undoubtedly the most valuable resource oaks provide for wildlife. Finally, consider the impact of climate change on your location. Your tree could live to be hundreds of years old. Is this a good species of tree that could withstand warmer temperatures? What happens if Lynnfield becomes significantly warmer in the next 100 years? Consider choosing a species of tree that is hardier in warmer temperatures versus cooler ones. We know this is complicated, so don't worry about it. We're here to help. You can reach out to me or Jane Bandini, who is a master gardener, if you're looking for assistance here. All right, let's talk briefly about Latin. Latin is the systematic approach to naming plants and animals, and it's still the universally recognized system used today. While many gardeners struggle with Latin names of plants, knowing a plant's botanical name allows you to converse with gardeners all over the world. Don't worry though, Latin pronunciation is not important and it's often variable. Latin is a written language that is very exact. If you're curious, you can hear the pronunciation of some of these Latin names through the Missouri Botanical website, which we can provide to you later. But in any event, if you want to seriously discuss trees, you'll need to pick up a little Latin along the way. So when you submit your 3 tree choices to us, you're going to include their Latin names. We know you haven't actually learned any Latin yet, but we're going to give you a chance to guess at some in exchange for a tree committee prize. I'm going to ask a question, you're going to answer in the chat. First person to answer wins. What native tree is known as Ulmus americana in Latin? Take a guess right now in the chat. I'll give you about 10 seconds. Next question. Which of the following produces acorns? A, Quercus alba, B, Acer rubrum, or C, Pinus strobus? You can just answer A, B, or C in the chats. First person to get it will win a prize. And the answer to the first question is the American elm. And the answer to the second question is Quercus alba, aka white oak. Once this presentation is over, I will check the chat, figure out who won the prizes, and I will get in touch with you to send you a fun prize. Now we get to the fun matchmaking part of the project. By March, you will all have chosen your locations and emailed them to us at the tree committee. That's going to be both the address of the location as well as a photo of the location. You will also have chosen 3 possible tree species, using the Latin names when possible. Scouts will indicate their choice in order of preference of tree species, and Jane will act as a matchmaker to pair the right tree with the right location. Remember that the one you like best isn't always available, or it isn't always the best option. So we will figure out which one is the perfect tree for that site. The goal here is for you to plant your trees in mid-spring, so hopefully late April or early May, and we will coordinate with you and your scout leader to make this happen. The trees are going to come in large pots, so you'll have to be ready to dig a large hole. The scouts will bring your own tools to do this, and if you don't have any, just get in touch with us in advance and we can certainly provide those for you. We will also be providing a water bag that we will attach to each new tree to make sure that it has a good start to the growing season. The whole thing will probably take about 45 minutes start to finish, and obviously we can schedule this with you based on our respective schedules. The last part of the project involves you caring for your tree. You're going to put a lot of work into choosing the location and the tree species here. So we want to make sure that these trees live, and maybe in 20 years you can come back to Lynnfield and visit your tree and, be really proud of what you've done. So that means you're going to be caring for your trees weekly unless it's raining a lot, and just making sure that your tree is getting enough of everything it needs. So that concludes the presentation, and now Jane and I are here to answer any questions that you might have about this project or about trees in general. So yeah, thank you guys so much, and let me know if you have any questions.